Well, I've got some priming done in this area. I want to get it painted. This is mostly going to be covered with cabinets and storage and other things. So I'd like to get that sealed up before I put that in. I wanted to do this section first so I could start construction on this, but I think I'm going to add some trim accessories on the ceiling and get this whole section primed and painted. So in the ceiling back here, because so much of it's going to be covered, it's really only going to be a small section here on the hallway. I'm going to mimic the look of my rafters before it was sheathed. And I'm going to put some trim on the ceiling. The center will be quite wide. It's going to act as a wire chase. There's going to be a light here in the center, probably into a medallion or something. Normally I have music in these little cutscenes, but I kept getting copyright strikes. And I was paying for Epidemic Sound Music Service, but I didn't make a video for over a year. So I was paid $20 a month for the privilege of not using it. So for now, these are silent little scenes. I had filled all the nail holes once with like Drydex. Most of them are going to be covered, or this part's going to be behind insulation. Most of it's going to be cabinets or the inside of a closet. The bed area itself will be covered by a mattress, but I probably will double fill those just so it looks smoother. And then a few around the windows will need to be done, so I'm not forced to use super wide trim. Got some thin molding to go on the front of this and the side here. I was originally just going to put one strip at the top to cover this raw plywood edge, but I thought I wanted to mimic the look of my framing before it was sheathed. It'll be a good reminder. I used to love sitting in here when it's just a frame. So yeah, fill in a few holes and we're going to do some trim work. Put in my first piece of trim here, and this is sticking up a tiny little bit past this piece because this maple strip I put in the back to cover this plywood edge is sticking up a tiny little bit. This is going to have a cap on it to match the thickness of the bench seats, which is going to be probably 1/2 inch. So that leaves a little tiny void I can fill with construction adhesive. But so for this piece of trim, I'm going to tack it at each end with a brad nail, and I'm going to put a level across it and hold it straight. So I'm not concerned with following this line, I'm concerned with level wing to wing. We have to fill every hole we make. At the bottom here, I'm going to have a 2-inch piece of molding. Well, it's actually going to be 3/4 at the bottom and then 1 1/4 above it, because my flooring is going to be between 6 and 12 millimeters, about 1/4 or 1/2 inch, plus a small shoe molding, and this top is 1 inch. And I've got some vertical members, but so the bottom, by the time my floor is in, I want to make sure there's about 1 inch of the white painted trim showing as well. Plus or minus, depending if I switch floors, if it's thinner. Whatever flooring I put in first, I'll make the shoe molding. And the 3/4 inch piece on the bottom, I'm just priming it right now. I'm just going to pin it in. You won't see any of it once the flooring and the shoe molding goes on. But if there's any like standing water on the floor, if it does get damaged or looks soggy or whatever, you can easily take it out and replace it without having to affect the rest of the trim. So that is the plan. So I've got some trim done down here. I did put a little strip across there underneath that raw plywood edge. And then I'm mimicking the look of my rafters before the sheathing went on the roof. This center one is actually just a scrap of plywood the same width. I'm going to actually have a light in the center that's going to butt into. And this is going to act as a wire chase to that light and probably all the way up to the front. Although I do have other ways to run wires up there. So I have filled all my nail holes, some of them twice, and I think I'm ready to prime this whole thing, except the ceiling in the front, because I don't think I'm going to paint that. Something different in mind. And that very top portion still needs to be insulated and sheathed, but there's going to be shelving and storage up there. So, but yeah, it's coming along. I'm still going to make a cleat and some more little bit of trim on the top of the inside of that water cooler. Not really going to be too concerned with the bottom. It is caulked pretty heavily, and since it's just for water storage, I'll just paint it. But I probably will put a little trim at the top, and there'll be a cleat there, and probably there just to cover this raw edge, although this cabinet will be out further to leave room for my sink drain. So it's getting there. Not very exciting, but got a cleat for the back bench area. Singing. I might get a copyright strike. Well, I'm in the shop today. We've got a smattering of snow outside. It's not supposed to last, but it is supposed to get very cold later in the week. I have a cleat for the bench area. I did glue on a strip of maple on the top. It's just a pine cleat for a bit of durability. To attach it, this is 1, 7. I'm trying to find the center. It's a pretty dull pencil. Yeah, that's not it. Easiest way to find center, measure from both sides. Okay, we're going to do maybe 1. Approximate center, and approximately in the center of that. Not sure there. 44, 22, that's an inch. An inch and let's go 1 3/4. And then we will go 20 1/4, so 10 1/8. And we'll go on the 20, 10 1/8, and that should be. Oh, wait. Oh. Let's edit that out. 10 1/8 from here. 11 7. Good enough. So I've got some of these tapered plugs. They're 1/2 inch wide, and they are also, are these end grain ones? Oh no, they're face grain ones. I was going to make some out of actual pine. I do have tapered plug cutters, but because I already had some of these made up, I'm going to use them. The only thing is they're maple, and they're a lot harder than the pine. So as you go to flush up, if you just cut them close and then sand them, you have a hard time getting the maple flush because the pine is much softer, and you end up slightly raised plugs. But for our purposes here, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just using 1/2 inch Forstner bit, and I'm going down just the depth of this top of the bit. This is the last piece I got to put in before I'm going to prime and paint. Crappy crap. Because these are tapered, some glue, and you tap those down, they pretty much fill the hole. Even though you can see some of my holes because I just freeballed it. They get a little oblong or elongated. The taper will fill it all up. What I need to do is drill a through hole. I'm doing a through hole with the countersink bit. This taper will actually match the screw threads. And then I just have a little backing block. So I'm going to glue this in place, hold it with a couple brad nails, and then we're going to screw it and glue these plugs, and we are ready to prime. A level across here. Now just to make sure we have some. Oh, it's way high on the roof. Oh, just more sanding to do. So, countersink. I like the way that sounded. try. Now, to vote. Good to go. And a little stick. This one. Okay, now we do a taparoo. This pine is so soft. So these are essentially flush. Dry, and either take a chisel or a hand plane to clean that up. Normally they stick out a little bit more, and you cut them flush with a saw, but this pine is so soft. So we're gonna get them close. Honestly, even if these plugs showed up. Was that necessary? No, it was not. Okay, we are going to prep for primer.